Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. I am the Crypto Crow. Today we're going to be talking about, of course, some Cardano. We're going to be talking about the Pi cycle top indicator. We're going to be talking about a few different indicators that I've referenced in previous videos. And I'm going to share some things that I found interesting that I basically predicted back in 2022. Now, I predicted some of this stuff before. I'm actually going to pull this up on Twitter and share it with you. But the first thing I wanted to address is sentiment and kind of what's going on. Because quite frankly, there's a lot of contention, I guess you could say, in the market, in kind of what's happening. And one of the number one things that I want people to really start taking away from their experience in crypto is patience. Since 2017, I feel like I've quite literally seen it all. Okay. And, I've learned how to just keep my cool, keep my calm amidst any kind of storm, any kind of situation, because it doesn't really matter what we think is going on in the crypto space. Generally, the rule of thumb is it is all relevant to the market cycle and the time of things. What I mean by that is we will see a variety of different news articles, right? A perfect example of what I'm getting at is back in like 2017 when the CME futures launched. They took credit for taming the beast, if you will, taming the crypto market. Because once the CME futures launched, that's when the market peaked and we started getting our big decline, our entry into the next bear market. And the reality is that, while so many people were trying to take credit for that, it was all nonsense. They timed the market based off of the market cycle. And that's when you're going to see a lot of different narratives play out in the space. If we're due for a big correction in Bitcoin, or we're due for a correction in the market overall, you're going to see a lot of narratives play out in the media that are trying to ride that wave down, or the reverse of that. They'll ride that wave up. A lot of this stuff, I believe, is honestly algorithmic. And I think that a lot of these algorithms play into the 4-year cycle, this 4-year narrative, 2-year bull, 2-year bear, all of that. And everyone else is just trying to play a narrative in the midst of these swings, these ebbs and flows of the market, as I call them. And so, we're going to see negative sentiment across the board. We're going to see positive sentiment across the board. And it really is all relative to the time in the cycle we're in. We are at the very beginning of what I believe is and obviously we're in the beginning of a bull run, right? And there's a big difference between a bull run and a bull market. The bull market is typically, we're not going to see any more lows. We're not going to see a new low from here. So, if we were to look at Bitcoin in the last cycle, the end of the bear market would have been when Bitcoin was around 3,500, right? And from there, it started to move up. And that's when I consider the transition going from the bear market into the bull market. That doesn't mean we're in a bull run. That just means we're in a bull market. We're likely not going to see a lower low, and the price is going to start fluctuating on its way up. The bull run is basically where I believe we're at now, where, we're consistently meeting new highs. We're not necessarily going sideways for 6 months, or, we're basically maintaining ourselves within a particular channel within $3,000 in Bitcoin's price. Consolidation phase, elongated consolidation phases, things of that nature. One thing I want to show is this was a prediction that I made a while back. Let me get rid of my video here. This was in November. It was November 19th, 2022. And these are the predictions that I made at the time. So I basically said the bottom of Bitcoin was 9,600. The bottom of Cardano at the time was 14 cents. And the 2025 peak, slow volatility after, Bitcoin's peak, I thought would be around $115,000. Obviously, we're going to blow that out of the water. So much has changed since then. Because if you look further down, I predicted the launch of a spot ETF, which we got many of them since this prediction. And, a lot of this other stuff is going to be here or there, but we'll see. I also predicted Cardano's price at $7.22, that being at the peak of the 2025 cycle. Well, Bitcoin generally always comes first, and everything else cycles through in a system of phases. Non-compliant, opaque stablecoins will be regulated out of crypto. This has still not happened. There's still a lot of new stable coins. A lot of this stuff is coming to the market. This could be a 2030 thing, and because the one thing that's always, generally my predictions tend to come true. It's just that my prediction timing may be off. I will see something in the future as like, this is probably going to happen. This is probably a real thing, but my timing can be off. Traditional stocks will be tokenized for the 24/7 markets. This is in process now. This is actually happening. We're just not seeing the full culmination of this yet. But back in November 2022, this was speculation. And this is before obviously a lot of the stuff we're seeing today. Exchanges will be forced to utilize CBDCs as an on-off ramp for tokens for retail trading. I still believe this is going to happen. Will it happen in 2025? Probably not. But I do believe this is definitely going to be a thing probably between now and 2030. Launch of spot ETFs have happened. 2023 will be the end of bear markets for a decade. Now, this is something worth discussing. And then digital IDs on blockchain required. This is something that I think is going to play into the CBDCs and all of that. And here's the thing about a lot of these predictions. I think that 2025 is going to be too soon. I feel like 2020. I feel like these predictions were way ahead of their time. But I do see these happening. There is going to be a time when we are going to be forced to enter and exit any crypto on the market utilizing CBDCs, the ultimate tracking method. The centralized bank tokens that are issued by the state, and they can track everything, and they're going to be able to turn off and turn on these tokens. And I do believe that this is absolutely going to happen. And not only that, but I believe a lot of the inflow, outflow, a lot of the activity associated with CBDCs are ultimately going to, this is an addition to this, I think that a lot of this stuff is going to be systematically orchestrated, monitored, and, whether there is a punishment issued or something, but it's all going to be handled by AI. That's the future we're looking at. And I do believe that we're going to have elements of, what you say online, what you do online. You may not be silenced or censored directly on the platforms because it's been proven now that they really can't control it all. But depending on what's going on, who's in office, who's running the show, what's happening, we could very well start seeing penalizations through our CBDCs for actions we take or things we say or what we do online. We're going to be held accountable. But unfortunately, I do believe that some of this accountability is going to be relevant to who's in office. And we've seen how so many of the different systems and the different departments can basically be weaponized against anybody now. And they're not even hiding it. And I do believe that is kind of a testament to show, hey, whoever's in office, they rule the roost. They can dictate what happens. And so you better be careful of what you say and when. We're seeing, for years and years, the media was able to say basically anything they wanted and ultimately not worry about recourse. Like they literally would lie through their teeth about everything, but not worry about any recourse. And then after this election, lo and behold, the whole ABC News they agreed to pay $15 million for all this stuff. It's like, maybe that's the very beginning, but you can see, depending on who's in office is going to dictate who gets away with what. And so keep that in mind moving forward, because the world is definitely going to be changing. And on top of that, when we do start seeing these CBDCs, I believe that they don't have to, if they start basically making exchanges utilize CBDCs as an entry point and an exit point, they don't have to really control the rest of crypto. Yes, we'll be able to use them for things and they will be used for a lot of things. But effectively, if you're trying to cash out into USD to buy property or any of that stuff, there's going to be for a long time, there are still going to be so many people that even if they hold crypto, they're not necessarily going to know effective ways of using them on chain. They're going to want to exit into, cash and put that cash into their bank accounts to make large purchases and things. And that is until the world is tokenized. When, real world assets, properties, houses, investment stuff, all of that is maybe it becomes fractionalized NFTs, and we're able to interact more freely on the blockchain, making these large purchases legally. We've seen Cardano used in Argentina with the first legally binding smart contract. A lot of this stuff is happening, but it's still basically in its infancy, but it's coming. And so these are all the narratives and all of the things that I am looking at in the future as both a crypto educator, quote unquote influencer, if that's what you want to call me. I don't really like that term personally. But that's what I'm looking at. And so, my role as a Cardano D rep, which I'm going to share that. I didn't realize this. I just looked, but I am top 8 of Cardano D reps in the world, folks. And this is huge, man. My voting power right now is over 54 million. That means that so many of you out there that watch my channel are familiar with me and my work and my integrity, which is always extremely important to me, especially in the crypto space, which I believe is honestly quite a cesspool. So many of you have been delegating your ADA to me in terms of voting power because you believe that, I'm going to make the best decisions for the community and for Cardano and so forth. And I wanted to share, this was my first official governance action that I just did today. I did vote yes on the Plomin hard fork name rechange from Chang 2. We already have Chang 1. It introduced the system. But this is basically about, a gentleman that had been working on it. And I'm just going to read this and share because it kind of touched me. And you guys know that I'm very much about legacy. And I'm always trying to build my legacy. I'm always trying to do things to help people. I've got a whole big group of friends, people that I know, other influencers. I'm helping a gentleman right now who I'm going to try and help him build like a marketing company. I don't want anything from him. I don't want anything from anybody. I just want my name to move on beyond me. And that is such an important thing to me. So when I read this, I thought, yes, I voted yes for this. I believe in this. The Intersect Hard Fork Working Group proposes to name the next Cardano hard fork the Plomin hard fork in memory of Cardano community contributor Matthew Plomin. There's a tradition of naming hard forks in memory of notable historical figures or significant contributors to the Cardano community. Naming this hard fork in memory of Matthew Plomin would memorialize his actions in life to selflessly support and contribute to the Cardano blockchain ecosystem. Maybe someday there'll be an Appleton hard fork or something, and I feel like when you play a role and you read through all of this, but I voted yes on this. Absolutely. I support stuff like that. And that's basically that's where I sit on that. So, moving forward, just know that kind of stuff does mean a lot to me. And I'm always going to take an action that I believe is going to benefit the community, or with things like that may or may not be considered a little more novelty with folks. I see the importance and I see the value of it and I see the sentiment behind it. And I find that stuff very important. And so, that was my first official D-Rep voting action. And know that moving forward, especially considering how much my voting power has grown, I'm going to be checking that and referencing it daily. And when there's a governance action, I'm going to read through everything. I'm going to make my decision and I'm going to share it. Typically I'm going to share a lot of them on Twitter. So if you want to know what I'm doing, You can do that on Twitter. Just follow me on Twitter. I also wanted to make a note that I talked about this a long time ago, and I still hold it. I still have it, but this is my Valinity. And Valinity is up to 86 cents right now. It's come back down a little bit, but it had an all-time high recently at almost 93 cents. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Valinity is the system. I know that they sponsored me a while back, supplied me with Ethereum that I then put into the Valinity system. I just checked it yesterday. At the time, I think it was worth around 30 grand. Right now, it's sitting at like 50 grand. So and I know that they just redid their they're redoing a whole bunch of stuff with their system. So I just thought I'd update those of you that like heard about it. I've talked about it in the past. This isn't necessarily under sponsorship or anything. They haven't given me anything since then, but this is something I wanted to follow up on. They seem to be doing pretty well, and I know that they've got some big announcements, some big news coming, and I probably will be covering that in the not so distant future. So next on the list, I wanted to go over, where is it? Well, this is where we're at in the Bitcoin rainbow chart so that everybody understands kind of what's going on. We're in the green, but we still have a ways to go until the peak of this market is considered in. And I got some questions from folks wanting to know explain the Pi cycle top indicator, because this has been a big, big deal for me. And it's something that I reference quite often. And this is proven to be very, very accurate for every market cycle to date. And we'll see how accurate it is this time, but we still have a pretty wide berth in the spread of this. And if we look at it in comparison to approximately where we were in the last cycle, I'm trying to basically eyeball this. I would say maybe it's looks like about right there. So this is basically where I think we are in the current market cycle. And this was all the way back in September. And we had all the way into the next year where we finally peaked out. And you can see this is where we're at currently, right? So we have a big wide berth. So, and some people will say, well, what is this? So I figured, you know what, I'll ask ChatGPT and see what it has to say. And then I figured I'd share it with you so that you kind of understand the relevance. The Bitcoin Pi Cycle Top Indicator is a specialized technical analysis tool designed to signal potential market cycle tops in Bitcoin's price history. It gained notoriety for having remarkably pinpointed previous all-time highs and cycle peaks with close timing accuracy, at least in retrospect. And still, it's still been pretty accurate. Although not guaranteed to be foolproof or predictive, it has been so far, but it doesn't mean it's going to forever. It provides a visually intuitive framework that many traders and analysts reference when assessing market conditions. So this is a 111-day moving average. This is a relatively shorter long-term average that tracks price momentum over roughly 3 to 4 months. And then this is against the 350-day moving average multiplied by a factor of 2. This is a longer baseline average selected to represent nearly a full year's worth of price action. Multiplying it by 2 creates a slower, smooth benchmark that seldom intersects with shorter term averages unless the market reaches extreme conditions. And so that's the basic gist of it. The core crossover signal, the core logic of the indicator is when the 111-day moving average crosses over the 2x 350, it has historically correlated with significant market cycle tops. The assumption is that this crossover represents a point of excessive speculation, overextension, and peak market euphoria. And it has been accurate to date. So this is one of the main things that I reference when I'm looking for a market peak. And of course, a lot of these other things. I look at the stock to flow, which I know that there have been some variances in stock to flow, and people say, well, this isn't necessarily as accurate anymore. But you know what? We've had some very interesting things from the 2 peak cycle last time, which I believe to some extent was manipulated. And in the same way, I feel like a lot of the price, and ultimately I do believe that the prices across the board were suppressed a bit. I don't know if we're going to get that now because we have so many institutional vehicles at play. I can't see why they would want to suppress the price outside of just new adoption. But I think at a certain point, they're not going to be able to suppress this much longer. And I think we're going to get substantial breakouts from the $100,000 range, which is also what I expect to see with Cardano. And then, of course, I showed that. Now, looking it into the block, no, we're not going to look at that because I don't have that open. All right, fair enough. So anyway, so that's basically what I wanted to show and just kind of alert everybody to. These are what I'm looking at all the time. That's the stuff that I'm always considering. But the one thing that I want to just stress to everybody is like, you have to understand sentiment and kind of where we're going. We're going up, folks. I mean, it really probably doesn't matter much what you hold. It's probably going to have a number of pretty good months moving forward. I believe that the inauguration is going to play a major, major role. I do believe that there's a very good likelihood that Cardano hits its all-time high in January. So, we're at $1 now. And, I do think we're likely going to hit another, $2. I think it's all-time high at 340. I think we're going to break that in January. I also think moving forward, we're probably not going to see the big 30-40% drops in Bitcoin's price moving forward. In previous market cycles, seeing a 40% drop in a bull run was common. I don't think we're going to see that anymore. And that is the same reasoning behind why I made the prediction that we're likely not going to have another bear market after 2023. Keep in mind, that was in 2022 when I was saying all that, but I still think that prediction is relevant today. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I just kind of look at the grand picture of things, and I know where we're heading. And I know that 2030 is basically I think 2030 is going to be the grand poobah culmination of everything we've done since 2009 in the crypto space. And I think that really does say a lot. If we look at the world that's being projected by groups like the World Economic Forum and, like you'll own nothing and be happy and this and that, the world is going to move much faster. Everyone's going to be much smarter, but we're only going to really know what they want us to know. So we're only going to see the picture that they put right in front of us. And for many, that's going to be enough. For those of us who are more truth seekers and we like to look behind the veil and we like to understand the nuances of what's going on behind the scenes of things, that's something that, guys like me really spend a lot of time doing. I want to know the real picture. Just tell me the truth. I feel like I'm definitely one of the people that can understand and appreciate things. Even when I look at what's being put out by the World Economic Forum and their agenda overall, while I think that there's a lot of garbage associated with climate change. Personally, I just do. Is the climate changing? Yeah, probably. There's definitely evidence to that. But the other evidence is it shows that it's a cyclical thing that's been happening for thousands of years, millions of years even. I just think that now we have groups of people that are learning how to profit from these narratives. And it's not necessarily in the best interest of the public. Why is it that the United States is one of the only I think Canada, basically a lot of the left-leaning administrations in different countries adopt this ideology for climate change, but somehow it's always in a way that allows them to profit. And, I think when it comes to things like that, narratives like that, I think when it comes to big pharma and all of these different things that come into play, I personally think that, they shouldn't be raking in record profits for things that are supposedly meant to help the world. They make enough profit off of all of the other things that they come out with that are basically bombarding us daily on network television sets. And so I think that a lot of this stuff is going to change between now and 2030. Some of it for the better, some of it for the worse. But the whole reason I'm doing this video is to try and explain to people that this could very well be one of the last opportunities you have to get in and effectively change your life in preparation for what's to come over the next 5-6 years. And I really can't stress that enough. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but the world is absolutely changing. And I think that, like the military, we get an announcement of this new jet, this new bomber, this new fighter, this new whatever, and it's already 20 years old. And I think that what the world is typically presented with publicly is yesterday's news. And, we're always working on building, expanding, and growing things behind the scenes while we're still learning about what we did 20 years ago. And I believe that that is absolutely the case in crypto. I believe that artificial intelligence is going to play a bigger and much more significant role in the future. I was just talking to my son about this stuff. I'm like, the world you live in, in the next 6 years is going to be dramatically different from the one that you see today. And now is the time to start preparing. And for Christmas, I basically gave him some Cardano and explained to him, like, you need to start watching this. And I want you to start learning about why this is important, what this matters to you now, and what it's likely going to matter to you in the future, and why it's definitely of your interest to not just cash it out and sell it and go buy some trash that you don't need or really isn't going to help you in life in the future, but hold on to it, watch it grow, watch the value of it rise, and then start learning about why it's rising and why it's an important asset and how you think that can change the future and how it's likely going to be utilized to change the future. And, if I had my way, all my kids would be in like AI development school right now, learning about how they can play a role in the future instead of just being a side effect of it. And that is something that I see. It's what I'm doing right now. I mean, every day I'm learning more about AI and how, all of the different business ventures you're having one-man billion-dollar valuations based off of AI corporations and businesses that they're starting, and more power to them because they have the foresight to understand where tech is going and where the future of the world is going. And the final thing that I want to say, just to get people thinking, is, when you look at everything that's happening in the world today and you watch the population decline and you see people like Elon Musk saying things like, our populations globally are dropping all over the place. And you think about the grand agenda associated with how the powers that be can control things and pull the strings, and, whether you want to put your tinfoil hat on or not. But if you think about a future of people that are effectively going to be smarter, have easier access to information, have a lot of the more and really not even the most tedious of tasks adopted for them and handled by AI. But basically, if you think of a world where a lot of the things that many people, millions and millions and millions of people are paid to do on a daily basis right now as a job, those jobs are not going to be around. Effectively, we're not going to need as many people in the world then as we did yesterday. So what happens to those people? And if you see a lot of these narratives, like in Canada, where if you're like, have you had enough? Well, go ahead and go sit in our box for a little bit and you'll go to sleep peacefully, if you know what I'm saying. That kind of stuff is becoming a bigger narrative all over the place. It scares the shit out of me. And the reality is that we're not going to need as many people. Hell, even groups like the World Economic Forum and their medical advancements with stem cells and all this other stuff, basically they're saying, hey, I just watched a guy talk recently about how if you are alive in the next 5 years, there's a good potential that you'll live to be 500 years old, or that you could potentially live forever. The technologies for 3D organ printing and genetic manipulation and DNA, all this stuff, all these sciences are coming to fruition right now in a way that we can take the greatest minds of our generation and make sure that they never go away. And, I'm reading Pat Bet-David's book, The Academy, and I'm reading it slowly, but I'm halfway through it. And one of the things that he does, that he talks, it's really good, by the way. If you don't have it and you like to read, it's a fiction book, but it's really, really good. I really love Pat David, and he's one of the few people in the world I'd really look forward to meeting sometime, or doing a show or just talking to. I honestly think we'd have a hell of a conversation personally, but his book is really good. And this book is about an academy. It's kind of like this secret, I don't know if you want to call it a secret society, but kind of it is. And, they meet Marilyn Monroe. And, they're trying to figure out how is Marilyn Monroe standing right in front of us? And she's basically a highly evolved hologram that looks real. There's no flickering, the technology that they use to create her, the version of her, ultimately utilizes AI and other technologies to basically make her appear real and interact with these students as a way of teaching them. And one of the first lessons they're learning basically is the art of seduction and what that means and how to make people feel a certain way. And it really puts you in the mind of someone like Pat David, who's a really good interviewer, and I would guess a very good interrogator, because he has a way, and I see it when he does it, and I pick up on it. And I'm guessing, when you're the target or you're the person he's talking to, trying to get more information out of you, or he's trying to make you feel comfortable in a way, to be open with your thoughts rather than try to stay reserved. He's very, very good at it. And when I see him do it, I'm like, I see what you're doing there. I see what you did there. And it's when you're the target of it, you're probably not as cognizant of what's happening. But I can see a lot of his mannerisms and his methodology behind interviewing people coming out in the way these people are being presented in the book as training these young, whether they're supposed to be spies or whoever they're supposed to be in the book. So anyway, it's a really good book. If you're interested, go pick it up. I got the hardback version of it, and I'm very glad I did. It takes a lot for me to finish a fiction book, and I'm really enjoying this. So that's it. I guess I just wanted to put out a video today where I'm kind of rambling a little bit, sharing some of my thoughts. There are going to be a lot of geniuses over the next 6 months. And there are going to be a lot of people experiencing the euphoria of a bull market and what that means. And, typically, last bull market, I kind of went silent. I did a lot of content over the bear market, preparing a lot of people for what was coming. I got a lot of people involved in Cardano back when it was like 2 cents. And I was just preaching the gospel, man, and the Church of Cardano, and sure enough, a lot of millionaires were made, and a lot of people didn't even sell at the peak of the market. They're still holding on to it. They've been delegating it, staking it, generating more and more ever since then. So they're in a much better position today than they were then. And they've had the patience, which is also one of the reasons why I tell people you don't invest in shit, because if you don't sell and you don't get out at the right time and you're stuck with it in the next market cycle, there's no guarantee it's coming back, which is also one of the reasons I focus primarily on layer one technology instead of all the other stuff. So anyway, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, man. I mean, I did my most recent video. It's over like 35,000 views. It was my last Cardano prediction video for 2025. I'm pretty sure it's going to be my last. We'll see where we end up in the next 3 months. But I want everybody to know, I really want you all to do very, very well. And I want you all to be very cautious. And I want you to really, when you see FUD and you see garbage, whether it's good or bad, you see that the FOMO, just keep your calm, keep your focus, keep focusing on the tech behind what's being presented to you. Why is it valuable? Why does it mean anything to somebody? What's it going to mean to people in 5 years? There are going to be so many new projects launching between now and the peak of this market, even after the peak of the market, and the majority are probably going to be crap. A lot of them are going to be cash grabs, rug pulls, all sorts of things. Some of them are going to be potentially sponsored segments on this channel. I don't have a way to police everything. I do my best, and I always share my honest opinions on things. But there are going to be some that fall through the cracks, and it's just going to be a smorgasbord of whatever you anticipate. It's going to be there. And just keep your eye on the ball. Know that between now and in 2025, your life's very much likely going to change. And if anything, especially for newcomers, this is going to be the opportunity for you to learn how to really change your life by 2030. And so what you learn today is going to be an extremely valuable lesson for how you're going to handle things moving forward between now and the 2030 market. So until next time, crow your coins. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you soon.